Israeli forces surrounding Gaza City this Thursday night.
We will proceed and win.
As civilians in Gaza have nowhere to run and have dwindling supplies. What some people have resorted to and why Israel doesn't want fuel let into Gaza. On the stand, the former RCMP intelligence director accused of sharing secrets testifies in his own defense. More than 1 million people powerless, the record-breaking storm pummeling Western Europe. And sketches in a secret room.
It's hard to tell who is right and who is wrong.
The debate over whether these drawings are the work of Michelangelo.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
This is the view from southern Israel of the Gaza Strip tonight. Israel's prime minister claims troops are at the height of battle and have moved into the heart of Gaza, encircling its largest city. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Israeli forces are advancing and their ground assault is getting more deadly. The IDF released this video tonight, a military spokesman saying its soldiers are now engaged in face-to-face fighting. Israel insists it is attacking Hamas outposts, headquarters and launch positions. But another refugee camp was hit today, too, in an area Israel had said was safe. Gazan authorities say at least 15 people were killed. Others are buried under the rubble. The health ministry, run by Hamas, says more than 9,000 people have been killed since October 7th. There's no way to independently verify that. Israeli soldiers are dying, too. This is the funeral for one of them. At least 18 have now died in the fighting in Gaza. Israel's prime minister rallied the troops today, telling them they are doing sacred duty. Every fallen soldier is a loss, he tells them, but nothing will stop us. The American Secretary of State is heading back to the region tonight. He's expected to push for humanitarian pauses. We'll have more on that in a moment, but we begin with Mike Armstrong and a warning: some of what you're about to see is disturbing.
In the first days of this conflict, Suzanne Beseso says she made a mistake. The Palestinian American could have left Gaza, but waited, as it turns out, too long. Finally able to board a bus for Egypt Thursday on her 5th try. She says she was torn to be leaving.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to see the family that I left behind or the friends that I left behind. People are dying. Everybody's dying. Nobody's safe.
Now, there was some movement into Gaza. Aid trucks were allowed to cross from Egypt. According to the World Health Organization, since October 7th, 217 trucks have made it in. The need on the ground, it says, would take 300 per day.
At the very least, we need a humanitarian pause in the fighting.
Those calls for a ceasefire aren't being answered. Israeli troops say they pushed deeper into Gaza Thursday, surrounding Gaza City. The Israel Defense Forces say they're taking out Hamas's front defense lines and controlling more and more territory. That does leave civilians in the crossfire. The Hamas-led Gaza Health Authority says since October 7th, more than 9,000 people have been killed in the Strip, including 3,400 children. UN officials say the fighting and bombardments have also left more than 1.4 million people homeless and struggling for every basic need. You wait in line for bread, this man says. You wait in line for water. You wait in line to charge a phone. Now, access to clean water is a growing problem. Gaza operates 6 large treatment plants and 2 desalination facilities. With fuel supplies choked off by Israel, none of those are working. Some UN officials have gone as far as accusing Israel of using water as a weapon of war. This woman says she's been drinking salt water, that things are so desperate she's doing things she knows are wrong. This girl says she has headaches and stomach pains. Her family is sick from drinking polluted water. Israel's prime minister says the cabinet is considering supplying fuel to Gaza. They're allowing in some food and water, but fuel is a different matter.
The issue of diesel is crucial.
This former Israeli national security advisor says Israel will be stubborn on fuel. It may be a humanitarian need, he says, but it's also something Hamas needs to keep hiding underground and continue fighting.
They need the diesel for the electricity. Otherwise, they need to get out of their tunnels because without air supply, they cannot live in those tunnels. And this is dramatic.
Now, Hamas may need fuel for air, communications, even light in those tunnels, but its needs may not be that urgent. Israeli intelligence believes the group has stockpiles that could last 3 or 4 months. Donna?
All right, Mike Armstrong in Jerusalem, thanks. About 800 foreign nationals and severely injured Palestinians have now been able to leave Gaza at the Rafah crossing. No Canadians are believed to be among them.
We're pushing on our friends in Israel, on our friends in Egypt, working with the Americans and others to make sure that the Canadian families get on the list. We're not going to stop until we get them out.
Canada's Prime Minister is among those who have called for humanitarian pauses in the fighting, and it now looks like the U.S., Israel's most important ally, is going to do the same. For the first time, President Joe Biden voiced support for the idea on Wednesday. His Secretary of State will be in Israel tomorrow. Our Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow is with me. Jackson, what are we expecting his message to Israel will be?
Hi, Donna. In the view of the U.S., a pause would allow hostages and foreign nationals out of Gaza and humanitarian aid in. The White House says it's pushing the Israeli government for as many pauses as necessary to accomplish those goals. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is tonight en route to Israel, where he's expected to press Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directly. Notable here is the language. The U.S. is increasingly direct in demanding that civilians be protected. The Americans believe they can extract concessions from Netanyahu because of the solidarity they've shown with Israel so far.
We've seen in recent days Palestinian civilians continue to bear the brunt of this action, and it's important that the United States is committed to making sure everything possible is done to protect civilians.
The U.S. says it also wants discussions to focus on what happens after the current conflict. The Americans view a two-state solution as the only way forward in the long term. The timing is delicate. The leader of Hezbollah, Hamas's ally in Lebanon, is expected to address the conflict for the first time during a speech on Friday. No doubt it will be watched closely by the Americans for hints about whether a wider regional war is in the making. Donna?
All right, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. Sam Bankman-Fried, whose FTX cryptocurrency exchange collapsed last year, has been found guilty of all 7 charges he faced, including fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He was accused of stealing as much as $10 billion from customers to finance political contributions, venture capital investments, and other extravagant spending. The jury of 9 women and 3 men in New York deliberated for a few hours before their verdict. It makes Bankman-Fried one of the largest financial fraudsters in history. He faces a maximum sentence of 115 years and is widely expected to appeal. There was some extraordinary testimony at a trial in Ottawa today. Cameron Ortis, a former high-ranking RCMP intelligence official, took the stand. He's accused of leaking classified information to targets of criminal investigations, and his lawyer says he was protecting Canada when he did it. As David Akin explains, the testimony is being carefully handled. David.
Well, Donna, what's not in dispute here is this fact. While he was director of RCMP intelligence, Cameron Ortis shared top-secret information with criminals.
The prosecution said what Ortis did was illegal, though it has not yet presented evidence as to motive. Why did Ortis do what he did? Well, on Thursday, Ortis himself took the stand in a courtroom cleared of reporters and others in order to protect national security, where, according to his lawyer, Ortis was going to testify that his actions were in large part as a result of secret information communicated to him by a foreign agency. But again, for national security reasons, the jury cannot be told any details of that secret information, nor can it know the identity of that foreign agency. From the witness box, Ortis was also expected to explain that he had the lawful authority to do what he did, and how, in doing so, he was fulfilling his mission of defending Canada.
Now, Ortis is going to be on the stand for 3 days, all of it behind closed doors, in case, by accident, a top secret bit of information is revealed. But the court has said it will release transcripts of that testimony, cleaned of any secrets. And those transcripts will provide more information about Ortis's means, motive, and his mission. Donna.
Okay, David Akin, thanks. Canada's public inquiry into allegations of foreign interference is underway, and the judge who is heading it laid out the framework today. The first phase will focus on accusations of interference by China, Russia, and other foreign actors, and any impact that might have had on the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. The second phase will look into how the federal government can detect and counter interference. Public hearings are expected to start in early 2024. The commissioner says she aims to maximize transparency without putting national security at risk. The first report is due at the end of February. Canada's Ministry of Defence is confirming tonight its military aircraft did not enter China's airspace on October 16th. Global News was on board a Canadian Armed Forces plane that day when it was intercepted by a Chinese jet using what Canadian forces call risky maneuvers. The plane was taking part in a mission to support UN sanctions against North Korea. Neetu Garcha explains.
These Canadian pilots put to the test, holding the plane steady off the coast of China. They're not making any sudden moves.
They have the right to intercept us, but they need to do so professionally and safely.
Equipped with air-to-air missiles, a Chinese jet banks back and forth, firing flares from in front and flying within close proximity.
I deal with the radar, with the camera.
As Corporal Kasia Fraser is busy on the nearly 9-hour mission above the East China and Yellow Seas on October 16th, others document on cameras an intercept that would be reported up the chain to Ottawa as soon as the plane lands back on base. Canada's Minister of National Defence called the Chinese jet's actions reckless. The next day, the Chinese Foreign Ministry blamed Canada for the incident, saying the Aurora intruded in China's airspace, flying over a set of disputed islands both China and Japan claim as theirs. But the Canadian Ministry of Defence confirmed Thursday the unsafe intercept did not take place near those islands, and Canada's military remained in international airspace.
In an effort to try to get North Korea to abandon its weapons of mass destruction program and its ballistic missile test program.
A mission assisted by Canadian Navy members on board HMCS Vancouver. We got a behind-the-scenes look at the ship and how they support Operation Neon.
We're operating above board, again, in support of the rules-based international order that we would be, let's say, in international airspace, and we're not inside someone's territorial waters.
The crew on HMCS Vancouver did not report any dangerous intercepts on the water. The question now is whether China is trying to challenge international airspace, similar to the way it's challenged Allied ships in the Taiwan Strait. Ottawa highlights its concerns about the dangerous intercepts are being raised through diplomatic channels. Neetu Garcha, Global News.
There are more alarming signs hatred against Muslims in Canada is on the rise. Today, the Senate's Human Rights Committee released its report looking into Islamophobia. It was conducted over the past year, and it found that 1 in 4 Canadians say they don't trust Muslims.
The evidence is clear. Islamophobia is an acute threat to Canadian Muslims, and urgent action is needed. We must commit to building a more inclusive country and to better promoting our Muslim relatives and friends, neighbours and colleagues.
The report found Canada leads G7 countries in targeted killings motivated by Islamophobia. It also found Muslim women were primary targets of violence, intimidation and microaggressions, in part because of their recognizable attire. Why the Alberta government wants to ditch the Canada Pension Plan and create its own fund. Coming up, why some retirees are worried. The Alberta government has taken another step towards creating its own pension plan. Premier Danielle Smith's government tabled new legislation today. It says will give Albertans some peace of mind about its plans, though it's not clear if Albertans want to withdraw from the Canada Pension Plan. And that will play a role in how the province moves forward. Heather Urix-West explains.
Enjoying their retirement, these Calgary seniors are creating art and sharing their thoughts on whether Alberta should exit Canada's pension plan.
I think it's ridiculous.
Why?
Well, the CPP has worked for us for a long time. It works very well. So I don't see why you would want to change something that is working well.
The government of Alberta disagrees.
The new plan could mean higher benefits for seniors and bigger paychecks for workers.
In ads and telephone town halls, it's been selling an independent APP, though the provincial finance minister says ultimately Albertans will have the final say.
That's why I'm pleased to table the Alberta Pension Protection Act today to provide reassurance to Albertans that this is their pension and their choice.
Under this new legislation, the province cannot set up a new pension plan or withdraw from the CPP until after a non-binding referendum is held. But there are questions around exactly what Albertans would be voting on. The Alberta government commissioned an independent report that says the province is entitled to withdraw 52% of the CPP, but critics question that number, saying it's based on the CPP allocation formula from when the fund was established in the 1960s.
The challenge here is that the language of the Canada Pension Plan Act itself is imprecise and vague, and so opens the door to a lot of potential interpretations.
The CPP is delivering.
It's why the federal finance minister has called an emergency meeting of her provincial counterparts to discuss the issue Friday. Back in this art class, the proposal remains a tough sell.
There's no concrete figures. The fact that they think that we can take out $334 billion out of the plan is ridiculous.
I'm definitely voting no. Emphatically.
An Alberta decision that could impact the retirements of Canadians countrywide. Heather Yurex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Canada's Western Hockey League is making neck guards mandatory for all players starting tomorrow or as soon as teams can get the equipment. The changes come after former NHL player Adam Johnson was cut on his neck by a skate during a game in England and died. The WHL is one of 3 major junior hockey leagues in Canada. The others already require players to wear neck guards. The NHL has not said if it will follow suit. Deadly disaster ahead. Storm Kiron wreaks havoc on parts of Europe.
Jesus!
A man on England's Cornish coast had a close call as a record-breaking storm slammed into parts of the UK. Storm Kiron packed hurricane-force winds, gusts of up to 160 kilometers per hour. There is localized flooding, uprooted trees, and power outages. At least 6 people have been killed in the storm. And as Crystal Gamansing reports, the damage extends to Western Europe.
Gusting winds, rain falling sideways, treacherous conditions for emergency crews working to clear an area where a woman was killed by a falling tree. Several others were injured in the Spanish capital as a result of Storm Kiron. In France, the Interior Minister visited a storm crisis center. Extreme wind led to a truck driver being killed northwest of Paris, and 1.2 million French households had their power knocked out. This storm period is not over yet, said the minister. We have to continue being attentive to the security measures. Hurricane-strength winds whipped up destruction throughout parts of northwestern Europe, across the English Channel, and through parts of the UK. A powerful jet stream that swept in from the Atlantic propelled Kiron, the second named storm to make landfall in the UK in 2 weeks. The satellite image from the UK's National Weather Service of the conditions Wednesday night shows the heavy rain, lightning, and thunder that blanketed the region. Jersey is the largest of the Channel Islands between England and France and was one of the communities hardest hit. Dozens of families are now being housed in hotels after their homes were damaged. Schools and doctors' offices will remain closed Friday as the community enters what's being called a recovery stage. Rainfall warnings are expected to remain in place for northeastern England and eastern Scotland until Friday. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
Next was this secret room decorated by Michelangelos during the Renaissance. One secret room has been opened to the public in Florence, Italy, and in it are drawings on the walls that have not been seen for centuries. It's thought they might be the work of the Renaissance artist Michelangelo, but the jury is still out. Redmond Shannon explains what they are and why they're so special.
He looks pretty good for a guy more than 500 years old. But even David needs a little beauty treatment now and then. Michelangelo's marble masterpiece is a must-see for art lovers who visit Florence. A short stroll away are the chapels of one of Michelangelo's patrons, the powerful Medici family. Inside is a secret room used as a coal bunker until the 1950s. It was then sealed up and rediscovered in 1975. When museum workers removed layers of plaster, these magnificent sketches were revealed.
Some people think that this is the room where Michelangelo sheltered in 1530 when he was under death threat because of Clement VII.
Pope Clement VII was a Medici and was enraged by Michelangelo for supporting a political push against the family. Proving this was his hideout is next to impossible. This sketch appears to be of a Michelangelo sculpture elsewhere in the chapel, that of Clement's cousin, Giuliano de' Medici.
Others think that these drawings were probably made in the 16th century, but not by Michelangelo's hand, but by some of other followers. So it's hard to tell who is right and who is wrong.
Starting this month, visitors can decide for themselves.
The argument will be reinvigorated as we open the room to the public, and I hope the scholars will come back, pause and look at the drawings and start to do more analysis in due course.
This is literally not for everyone. For now, just 100 people a week will be granted tickets. Each group of 4 limited to 15 precious minutes inside. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.